Good morning, welcome back to a new class. Today we'll be discussing chronic fatigue syndrome, so CFS. This condition is cellular related, so it's deep down in the cell mitochondrial level where your cells don't have enough energy. The amount of requirement there is in your environment, they're not producing that amount of energy, and that can be caused by various reasons and triggers. So the first element of this condition or this disease, it's actually a very complex, multi-system disease. There's no one cause for it, as per science. But today we'll look at the psychological aspect of why this disease is caused, so you can understand that there is a single cause to this condition. Even though science says there is it's a multivariate system, it has a start. Starting off with, you have predisposition, vulnerability. Okay, so there is you're already predisposed to something. So let's say virus, bacteria, toxins. So there's a baseline vulnerability, which means your immune system is already weak for something, whether it's genetic, whether you've been attacked by a virus, it's depression, anxiety. Okay, so there's a baseline issue that is going on already. And then there is a trigger or an emotional grief or something that happens in your life which is traumatic that triggers chronic fatigue. Okay, so there's a trigger. It can be trauma, grief, and this can also be the trigger. So viruses, bacteria, overworking can be a trigger. Overworking, in fact, burnouts, like prolonged burnouts, lack of sleep, insomnia, they can also, again, be a baseline issue and a trigger. All these variants, all these understandings of why you get deep exhaustion in your body, there's two layers to it. There is one side which is you're already weak, and then there's a trigger in your environment, there's a threat in your environment that puts you into a deep exhaustion. Deep exhaustion. This is like bone deep, so it's at cellular level, and even sleep or rest doesn't fix it. Sleep, rest, it cannot fix CFS because your immune system is essentially stuck in a sympathetic dominant mode. What does that mean? Your body has two nervous systems. There is a sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is your stress response. It's when you want to fight or fly. So you want to get out of a situation as fast as possible. Let's say a tiger is attacking you. There's a threat in your environment. So you need an insane amount of adrenaline to run, right? And that is your body changing your nervous system to sympathetic nervous system, where it blocks out your metabolism, your digestion. It doesn't require you to eat. It doesn't require you to do the fertility, for example. So it shuts down all reproducing digestive mechanisms in your body, and it turns on systems that will help you escape your threat. So sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest mode. When you're relaxed, when you're in a state of ease, you can reproduce, you can have digestive juices running in your body to help you process the food in your body. And there is a good amount of insulin, etc., being produced to ensure that there's a stability of cell energy. But when your immune system, when your baseline vulnerability is there, when there's a trigger, your cells can get stuck. So your immune system can get stuck in a sympathetic dominant state, which is like, think of hibernation, okay? Think of yourself like going into a cave, trying to escape a threat, and you're hibernating there. But you can't come out of the hibernation even though the threat is gone, okay? Your body adapts to how your environment is. And if your body sees a threat in your environment, it will put you in the sympathetic state. For example, today we have simple triggers like an email notification, a social media like, your boss getting angry, something like that. There is a honk in traffic. These are small triggers that essentially put you in the sympathetic nervous system. It puts you in fear. Now, once you get stuck there, once you're not able to relax and go into this parasympathetic nervous system, that's when you get chronic fatigue, because there's an insane amount of energy being produced by your cells to keep you in the sympathetic nervous system to ensure that you survive. But when there's a prolonging, so let's say you're working every day and there's burnout every day, and then suddenly you get hit by grief, and then your immune system will be like in a shock, right? Your cells will be in a shock and they'll directly go into a state of paralyzation, okay, where you're stuck and you can't really move. So that's what CFS is in short. I also wanted to say, before we go into detail, that I do write a newsletter. So if you do find my sessions long, even though they have an immense amount of knowledge in it, and you can benefit out of watching the entire video, I would highly recommend, if you don't have the time to watch these videos, even though they're very beneficial, you can subscribe to my newsletter, which I'll put a link in the description for you. I send out a newsletter once a week, which is basically a summary or an understanding of every disease that I cover every week. Okay, so this week, as we're covering chronic fatigue, I've already released and sent out the newsletter on understanding chronic fatigue from a layman perspective, as well as a simple way forward of how you can come out of this trance-like state. Moving on to chronic fatigue. So it's a syndrome because you get stuck. Okay, this disease it's a very long-term disease, and with a lot of other diseases like anxiety, like depression, it comes with it. Okay, and a lot of people, the simplest example I can give you is, like I mentioned earlier, someone, let's say, is working every day, 12 hours every day, they're stuck in that loop of work. They can't really get out of it. It happens to a lot of type A personalities who are workaholics. Just like acid reflux is a huge result of type A personalities, chronic fatigue syndrome is also the same. It's the point after burnout. So what I mean by that is, if you're working every day, let's say, I'm just going to tally, if you're working every day and there is like this pattern, right? Following 12 hours, whatever, and there's burnout. So there's a time where like your body goes into a state where you're constantly in the sympathetic nervous system. You're constantly in stress, but you don't really realize it. You forget about it, and you just think it's normal. Your body thinks it's normal because it's trying to survive. So it keeps you in the state, okay? So it keeps going every day, and suddenly you get hit by grief, a loss of loved one, or a traumatic incident, car crash, whatever. There is a physical or emotional trigger event that happens in your life, which basically strikes across your sympathetic nervous system. Just imagine like a tsunami being poured over you, and you're in a state of paralyzation. You can't really think what to do. You don't know how to escape it. You don't know how to come out of it. And even if you try and sleep and rest, you won't be able to come out of it because it's that difficult. It's that complex. Okay, your body's already vulnerable, working every day in stress, and then your body becomes even more vulnerable when there's a trigger. And in that vulnerability, in that state where you're very low, it's like you get stuck and you get put into a rabbit hole which you can't really come out of. You go into a deep cave and you get lost in the dark. Imagine that state. So, and ancient times, people thought of this as a disconnection from the solar energy, okay, the sun. It was the Aztecs especially, they found out that people who had deep exhaustion, who were tired of life, who couldn't really get up, who only did the bare minimum to survive, essentially, right? So even though you have CFS, even though you have that trigger of grief, you will keep going. You'll keep going because you have to survive. Your mindset is the type A, and you want to ensure that you're not looked down upon in society, so you keep working. And guess what? In society, people around you notice you as normal. Even though you're very deeply tired, people around you still notice you as normal. They can't really see that you have chronic fatigue. Okay? That's the pattern. That's how your body works when there is chronic fatigue. Now, as we discussed a few weeks ago about depression, how the sun is linked to depression, chronic fatigue is a comorbidity or even caused by depression. They go hand in hand. And the people in the ancient times, they weren't wrong to understand that you were disconnected from the sun. The sun is a source of energy. It's the greatest source of energy, in fact, in our entire cosmos, okay, in our solar system. And if we think about it from a cellular level, all our cells require vitamin D, and the synthesis of vitamin D happens through our skin. Okay, the biggest organ in our body is skin, and the largest energy source is the sun for us. If we lose our ability to have energy, if we have fatigue in our life, it's the first detector that we're disconnected from the sun, from a natural perspective, okay, from nature mimicry. Because our cells require vitamin D synthesis, we need solar light. Okay, our cells need energy, and they get energy. Everything gets energy. Everything gets life from the sun. And as soon as there is fatigue in our life, it simply means that we're away from the sun. That's one thinking. And another thinking that the ancient people believed was that the soul was in a shock. Now, what does that mean? Why is the soul in a shock? Why is there a line striking through or a trigger that has put you in a state of shock that you can't really process, so you keep going? And that's what usually happens. When someone has chronic fatigue syndrome, they keep working. It's because they don't want to process their grief, and that is the single most greatest cause, psychological cause of CFS. Usually it's emotional most of the time. This shock in your life, you keep working and you keep hiding away. Okay, you keep hiding away from your grief, and the more you hide away, the more tired you become, the more deeper you go into CFS. It's like a dual-edged sword, right? So on one side, exhaustion, and on the other side you have your emotions. The more you run away from your emotions, the more you use your work to run away from your emotions, the more you become exhausted. And that is the key or the secret or the cheat code to decoding or solving CFS. And no one will tell you this. A lot of like doctors, a lot of people who you go to for help, they'll only look at the surface level stuff. So they'll tell you that it's because you got a virus in your body. Oh, it's because your immune system was already weak. You had a skin condition earlier. Your immune system is not really strong. Oh, it's because you had recent grief in your life. That's why this happened. And yes, it is correct. But there is a more nuanced understanding to that, because that surface level understanding, which I explained to you earlier, only gives you half truth. Okay, it doesn't give you the actual cause. And if you look at your patterns in your life, if you look at how you've been raised up, what matters to you most, societal status, being able to survive, looking good in the eyes of others, etc. And you've not probably been grown up with processing emotions, being vulnerable, etc. So you reach a stage in your life where you only do things and you start living a life for other people, whether it's for your boss, whether it's for making money, etc. And when things that are important that happen in your life, when a huge tsunami comes, you're not really prepared. You're not strong enough to deal with that situation or even process that situation because you haven't been prepared. You haven't processed your emotions in the past. So this is a condition of the past and future events coming in one present state where it shocks your body. Because your body is fragile and your mind is fragile and you haven't been able to strengthen it. And strengthening is actually done through facing your fears, through processing emotions. Emotions and your mind are also fear. You fear your mind. You fear the emotions, the grief in your mind. That's why you don't face it. They are also fear. Fear of losing your job, fear of losing someone in your life, etc. And when that happens, you go into a shock. Okay? Chronic fatigue is a disease related to your vulnerability, your inability to be, your fragility, okay? Your inability to be strong. That's why your immune system is hugely involved in this, okay? Because your immune system are your defenses. And if your defenses are already weak from the beginning, whether it's from a virus, whether it's from toxins, bacteria, whatever it is, and these are just again few factors. There's psychological, there's lack of social support, there's depression. There are many other causes and predisposing vulnerabilities which damages your immune system already. So every day you're working, every day you're not resting well, you're working long hours. That's the simplest example I can give you. But there are many other, if you understand it, there are many other examples like this, that something's happening every day. It's the same pattern that you're following, and you're going through life without strengthening yourself, without understanding what your emotions are. Your life is a reflection of your inner state. If you haven't done inner work, it simply means being vulnerable, being able to understand what you're thinking, how you're thinking, why you're thinking, who you are, where you're going, where you came from. These are the few simple inner work questions that you can ask yourself. And if you don't ask these questions and you just keep going in life and trying to live up to what your belief system has been conditioned to, thinking that money is the most important thing, you can only do work in life, that's it. Like, you don't really care about the people, what makes life beautiful, nature, etc. Okay, you don't really think about that too much, and you just keep working every day. Okay, and you only focus on the outer reality. You never actually understand or try to understand your inner world. So you get stuck in the outer reality. You get stuck in the material world that we live in. I want to share something before I progress on to giving you that deeper understanding of this. In the ancient times, and the reason why I refer to the ancient times is because they had the least amount of diseases back then, and they knew how to deal with diseases not by selling you stuff, but by taking care of the inner world inside them. If you want to live a healthier life, don't look at the science today. Look at what people did in ancient times, in ancient civilization, because they weren't trying to sell you stuff. We live in a world where there is science, so there is commercialization, so there is materialism and consumerism. And your whole life is just focused on this world that has been created by science, by academia, etc. But back in the day, they didn't have that. And yet they were still healthier. Yet they used to live healthier lives, a very fulfilling life, grateful lives. It's because they immersed themselves in themselves. They used nature to help them. They understood what's important for them, what's important in nature, the meaning of love, you know? They understood all those things. And today we're disconnected from that completely. Small apartments, go to our office cubicles, live in a very boxed state of being away from the sky, away from the seas, away from nature, away from the mountains. And, you know, and we only go once every year or once every 2 years if we're lucky. We go on a holiday where we just like drink a lot or relax, whatever. And our relaxation is drinking. So you see the amount of stress, the amount of people hate going to work every Monday. The most heart attacks happen on a Monday morning because people hate being stuck in traffic. And, you know, so we live in a world where there is money, there's consumerism. And don't get me wrong, money was always there, even in ancient times, but it was used differently, okay? It was openly shared, right? You used to come home with treasure and you used to divide that treasure between your family and your friends. That's what pirates did. That's what the kings did. Okay, the kings back in the day, back in the ancient civilization, they gave their wealth away to the needy. And the purpose of money has changed in our reality. There's a lot more money than there was before, and yet there's a lot more problems in our reality. What I was mentioning earlier is back in the day, people used to understand that there are three worlds that we all, as humans and nature, are in. Okay, there is the divine, and then there is the earth, and then there's the underworld. Okay, so there are three planes, and every civilization had the same understanding. So imagine, it's just not one pattern. It's across all civilizations. They all believe that the planets had an effect on them. They all believe that there is divine, earth, and underworld. And that's how you can understand that, to some extent, it's probably true. Even though science probably denies all of that, to some extent, it's probably true because they believed in it. We have three levels. So we have the divine and the earth and the underworld. And there is a three pattern everywhere. There's the sun, there's the moon, there's the earth. They both have an effect on the earth. There's fertility on the earth. So life happens on earth. And then there's the underworld. And then there's divine. In Ayurveda, there is sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva is the divinity, peace, the morning. And then you have the rajas, which is the day, whereas there's movement, cars, like you're going to work, you're working. There's movement in the day. And then there's the tamas, which is inertia, which is darkness, you're sleeping. Yeah, these are the three stages of the day. There's a three pattern in every civilization. So we live in these three planes, essentially. And chronic fatigue syndrome, as per Ayurveda, is a disease of tamas, which is inertia. It's darkness. You can't get out of darkness. You're stuck there. Because we have these three planes, we can understand that we move across these planes in our day. But if we're stuck somewhere, if we're stuck in the underworld, we need to know how to get out of it. Okay, we need to know how to transcend, how to move up and elevate. That's why if you think about rabbit holes, like the more darker your thoughts are, the more darker your actions are, and the more you go into darkness in your life. But the more joyful your thoughts are, the more you laugh, the more you're light in nature, the more you fly, the more you're energetic, and the more peaceful you become. And that's your reality as well. The inner state is a reflection of the outer state, and the outer state is a reflection of the inner state. It's vice versa. Yin and yang, two opposites. There's an opposite of everything. Cause and effect. As we understand that there are three planes, but we only really care about one plane because we've been conditioned to care about that one dimension, one plane, which is the material world, the fertile world, whatever. And we don't really think about the divine, the imagination, the dreams, which is the higher. Like, if you think about it, where does our consciousness go when you sleep? Where does our consciousness transcend to when we sleep? Our consciousness is just not in our body. It's experiencing itself through our body, but there is a higher, like, there is one consciousness that is alive, that is vibrating throughout the universe. So when we sleep, where does that go? Because we get dreams, and you can watch your mind as well. Right? So your mind is, you're not your mind and you're not your body, because you can watch them. Okay, you can watch them. So when you're not aware of that, when you're not aware that there are other planes, there are other things in reality, there's just not science. When you understand that there are things in our world that coexist, there are different dimensions, there is a heaven, there is divinity, and you become aware of that, you start, and you're not blind to that level. When you're blind to that level and all you do is work every day, okay, there's a time where, because you're over here all the time and you never think about, or you never comprehend, or you never connect with the divine, you fall into the state. You go down, get into the underworld because of this trigger, and you get stuck there. And that's how I want you to think about chronic fatigue. There are 3 planes, and because you're constantly thinking about, because you only know and you only care about this reality, the reality that we live in. You only care about materialism, money, etc. You don't really know that you have emotions in you. So your emotions, your imagination are the divine elements in you. Your body, your eyes, your heart, they're the divine elements in your physical reality itself. The nature that we experience, the sun, the moon, they're all divine elements. Why are they divine? Because they are natural. They're in the natural world, they're existing. Trees are divine elements. Plants, what we eat is divine. So there is divinity in our life, but we only focus on materialism. And we only focus on materialism, we only care about that, we get stuck in a pattern of just caring about that. And over a period of time, when there is a sudden issue that happens in our life, we get pushed down into the underworld where there is darkness. And that is pretty much chronic fatigue. Now, the way you come out, and as I was discussing earlier, the way you transcend yourself is you face your fears. You use work, right? You use work to get away from your emotions, okay? You run away, you escape your emotions, your grief, which you need to process, this trigger, this line that's going across. You don't know what happened, you don't know how to process it, you're already burnt out, and you can't really understand what's going on, okay, in you, because you're already fragile, you've never been trained to do that, and hence you use your work to escape your emotions. Now, if you keep working, you can only work so much until until you're probably bedridden, and that's the harsh reality, until the cells exhaust themselves completely. There is molecules that go into your cell, there's molecules that come out of your cell. If there is less amount of supply not being processed in your cell, and there's an issue at the cell level, which chronic fatigue is, there is no energy coming out of your cell, there's no energy within you, there's no vitality within you. And if you keep working, you're eventually going to hit a wall. And you know this, right? People who have chronic fatigue syndrome, they know that they are running away from their emotions. They're running away from their trauma. They never process it. Okay? The way to come out of chronic fatigue is actually to face your emotions. It's actually to process and go backwards. Go back in history, understand where your traumas, where your triggers were, okay, where your grief was, where your body switched and it was in a shock. When you experienced something, there was a shock and you shunned that away, you pushed that away and you kept on working. When was that time? Think about it. And I want you to go back in your imagination, using your imagination, even if you're tired, use your imagination to go back and process your emotions. When you process your emotions, you'll move away from fatigue and exhaustion. The more you understand what's going on, okay, and you can make your body more powerful through processing your emotions, through being vulnerable. Being vulnerable is a power. And a lot of people understand that. And they think being vulnerable is bad because they get taken advantage of or whatever. But you don't have to be vulnerable to people. You can be vulnerable to yourself or to nature. Okay? You can talk to plants, you can talk to trees. They're all listening. This, in ancient times again, the air carried messages. And you can research this, right? The air carried messages, right? So people were so sensitive, they could hear the messages that the air is telling them. Air was, if you look across stories across ancient times, the stories that were told, the thing that separates the sky and the earth, even in the Maori culture, the thing that separates the sky and the earth is air. And air was used as transmitting channel of communication. And that's across every civilization. I want you to keep this in mind when you're understanding and you're processing emotions, you're processing communication, you're processing the data that's being transferred into you from your environment. It takes time. Okay, it takes time to understand what you've been through and how you can come out of it. Just paying attention, just being aware of it, will help you come out of exhaustion. The more you use distractions, the more you use work, the more you put on band-aids on an open wound, which is highly vulnerable already, the more it's going to hurt later on. So you have to pay attention to why that wound happened and how you can use your imagination to process it. And where do you get the energy from? Like you may ask, yes, I have chronic fatigue. I don't really want to process emotions because it's really hard. I don't have the energy. So what's the alternative? Where do you get the energy from? Because you have to process your emotions. If you don't do that, if you don't do the inner work, the outer body will be fatigued even more. And you'll stay in this underworld forever. You have to transcend. And your transcendence happens through communication, which is your emotions. If you connect the dots that way, you can move upwards. And how do you get energy to do that? You look at sunrises. Okay? Go out every day on top of a hill if you can, or if you can't do that, just like in the morning, get out and just look at the sky and the sun. Not only is it good for your circadian rhythm, which will give you energy to get up in the morning, and help you go to sleep better and help you deepen your sleep, but it will release your stress as well. So if you go up on a hill and watch the sunrise every day. Do that every day. Do that every day. Watch the sunrise every day. That will strengthen your inner world. That will strengthen your mind, and it will give you energy to reflect. The very magic, the very beauty that you see in reality, a long-term vision. Here you can see from a distance the sun is rising. It's a miracle in itself. A lot of people never watch a sunrise. They're stuck in their minds, in their they don't really value the importance of a sunrise and a sunset and the moon. And they come across it on their holiday and they're like, wow, it's beautiful. But everybody has access to it. Everybody can go out and watch the sun rise. It's free. And it's unfortunate that we only pay attention and we only value the things that are paid. It's really sad. But the things that are free in our life are actually the ones that are the most valuable. Your eyes were given to you for free. Your body was given to you for free. But when you take it for granted, and when you don't really focus on your body or your mind, and you only care about one thing is money, your materialism, there's only so much that you can actually care about it until you drop down into the underworld and you're stuck in depression and darkness for a long period of your time until someone gets you out, whether that's through medication, whether that's through help. Watch the sunrise every day. Okay, watch how there's a silver lining on a cloud, how the horizon looks. Okay, witness that magic, that miracle that we all have access to. And it's okay if it rains one day. You don't have to go out that day. It's okay. There's clouds. Make it a thing to be immersed in nature and use nature for energy. Okay? You get energy from trees. Like if you touch a tree, you get energy from it. Like this is not anything unscientific, okay? It's really sad that we only believe in the things that are scientific and we don't really care about the divinity in our reality. If you touch trees, if you're sensitive enough, you'll get energy. And the more you touch trees, the more you strengthen your sensitivity. The more you look at sunrises, the more you look at the sky, the more you look at the clouds, the shapes, the stars, the moon, the more you get energy. Your energy literally comes from nature, the food you eat. So if you want more energy, if you want to get rid of your fatigue, go out into nature, immerse yourself, go for a swim in the ocean. It's the most relaxing thing you can do for your body. The amount of energy that you'll get once you climb a hill, you'll feel it within you, doing a hike, going on the mountains, touching snow. The more you immerse yourself in nature, the more you use nature is there to help you. It loves you, because it needs you to survive. So imagine how much nature cares about you if it has so many things to de-stress you. And we live in a world where everything that we do, or Our world, our environment has been conditioned to stress us, raise our cortisol levels, kill our adrenals, literally. So if you want to transcend into divinity, right? If you want to sleep deeper, if you want to be more peaceful, you have to understand that there is a life, a plane where you can be, which is not the materialistic plane. There's more to life than just materialism. There's more to life than just your daily job that you go to. Your imagination, your dreams, they all play a significant role in understanding your mind, who you are, where you're going, your instincts, your inner communication that you receive. That's divine intervention. All the great things in this world, they came out of imagination. And imagination is the channel through which the divine communicates through you. So if you want to be light, if you want to be peaceful, if you want to have insane amounts of energy, use nature to process your inner world, to understand your emotions, to be vulnerable. Use nature. Use the sunrise to reflect on your emotions. You'll be stunned. Okay, after you watch sunrise, you'll be in trance-like state where you won't really care about anything, and you'll have this light energy within you, which will give you that window to understand your emotions. Okay? Once you process your emotions, once you start focusing and paying attention to your inner world, you'll start becoming more energetic. You'll come out of the exhaustion. You'll come out of the inner underworld and you'll transcend to divinity. It's because you don't know that. It's because you've not been told that there are things more important than societal status, more important than thinking that what people think about me. Who are you, in fact? What is your body? Is it really important? What is your mind? Is it really important? What is this material world? Is it really important? These are the questions. And I'm not saying they are important, they're not important. I'm just saying these are questions that you should reflect on. Who you are, where you came from, and where you're going. If you just reflect on that, and if you reflect on your journey and where your trigger happened, you can literally come out of any disease. Okay? Your mind is the greatest healer. It's the greatest medicine. Nature is the greatest medicine. The sunrise is the greatest medicine for fatigue. Going for a swim is the greatest medicine to calm you down. Using your breath, doing breath work, pranayama, yoga. It's one of the most powerful ways to switch from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system. One of the most powerful ways to calm down your stress and put you in the rest and digest mode. That's why chewing food slowly, taking life slowly, not being in a rush, time makes you rush. But is time a reality? Is it not that this moment is the most important moment in your life? What is time? You ask these questions. How was time created? What has changed? I know these are questions that people don't normally ask, and it's unorthodox to ask these questions, but those are the things that are really important. That childlike curiosity within you that gives you energy, that passion within you that gives you energy. So when you wake up in the morning, do something divine. During the day, do your work, which is also important. Again, I'm not saying that materialism is not important. I'm not saying that money is not important. It's because you only know that thing, that's why it's caused you those issues. If you knew that you could be immersed in nature, you wouldn't have your physical issues. You would take out time for everything. We live in these three planes. In the morning, you have divinity, so take out time for divinity. Watch the magic that goes on in your nature. And then you have time for life, so do your life stuff. Go for work out, whatever. And then you have time for rest, okay? Tamas, which is rest, inertia. Take out time to unwind and relax. Reading, going out for moonlight walks. All these things matter. Your structure in your life should be like this, these three planes. If you keep doing one thing, if you just immerse yourself in nature all day, every day, you won't have money to feed yourself, etc. The world that we live in today, unfortunately. But if you make a balance of these three planes, if you do these three planes at the right time, then you'll have abundance. You'll have health. You'll have a great defense mechanism to face any trigger that comes on in your life. You'll become anti-fragile. And that's the power that is within you. It's the power that nature wants to give you. But you're focused on one aspect of your life and not really thinking about other things. Take out time for yourself. Take out time for your mind. Your mind, your body need nature. Right? They need an immersion in nature. They need to see magic. They need to see miracles. They need to see how a bird flies in the morning. They need to see how the clouds shape, how they form, how a flower opens up, how a bee takes out the pollen from a flower. Your eyes need to see that. And then you have herbs that can help you. Rhodiola, sun-related herbs like St. John's wort, etc. Ashwagandha is great. And again, the diet, lifestyle, it's all the same. You should work out. You should have less processed foods, good healthy fats, balanced diet. It's all the same for every disease. The physical body, you already know those things. You can research that. You can research herbs that can help you with and support you with chronic fatigue. But this part, the divinity part, it's something that you can only experience, something that you can only witness with your eyes. Next condition we'll cover is IBS, a condition of the gut. Until then, thank you for watching. Take care. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I'll see you for the next class.